to get to a little bit more of the Flyers' perspective here, and link it to that Danny Briere interview, because my God, we've talked about a certain segment of the fan base that kind of just wants to flip out about anything and everything that could possibly go wrong and treat every negative piece of news as if this is really what's happening here. And like, I'm getting texts, not even from people who are mad, but maybe don't follow this stuff as closely. I mean, like, people in the industry who, the priority for them a lot of times, it's the Eagles and Phillies, you know?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Maybe they know about Matvei Michkov and we need him over from Russia, but they don't know everything that goes into like a KHL buyout and stuff like that. So they see the highlights of this interview with Briere in a French podcast. And like, what do you mean they haven't talked to him? They don't even know if he's ever going to come? Like, so much of it is just kind of playing that game.
Yes.
Like we talked about before the show, Danny Briere, his audience in that interview, it wasn't just Flyers fans, because saying, oh, we hope he's coming over one day. We haven't talked to him. We don't know. Anything could go wrong. That's very scary for a lot of people.
Oh, of course it is.
After just living through the Cutter Gauthier situation, it's like, well, we had these 2 blue chip prospects. We're down to 1, and that was kind of tenuous. Like, there's a reason he fell to 7, and now we have no idea. The thing about fans is, as soon as he shows up, they'll forget all the negative stuff. And right now, they're not worried about selling tickets and jerseys. They're worried about getting this guy.
Exactly.
So they need to play to that audience, whoever in Russia makes the decisions. And Matvei and his team as well. Like, we're not going to make this any harder on you.
Yes.
Because you're negotiating this buyout of your contract.
Yes.
All of a sudden, like, oh, yeah, it's going to be more than we pay you. You're like, because they're pissed. You don't want that to happen and make his transition even harder, where he's like, you know what? I'm staying.
I think the best sign for all of this, and the reason why I was certainly more than willing to cut Danny Briere some strategic slack on that podcast interview, was the fact that they nailed the Fedotov thing. And I said this after the Fedotov thing happened in, was it late March, early April, when that whole thing started to come out, that, look, I'm happy Ivan Fedotov's here. Hopefully he will turn into an above-average NHL goalie. That's great. I'm really happy for him, the person. But I thought, low-key, the biggest takeaway from that was that this shows that Danny Briere and Keith Jones and the new Flyers organization, the new era of Orange Flyers organization, it shows that they can navigate successfully a very precarious Russian contract situation. If they nailed Fedotov, it gave me a lot of confidence that they could also pull off the much higher stakes Matvei Michkov maneuvering that it was going to take to get him over here. Now, maybe they were just going to have to wait until his contract was up, but it showed that they can navigate those waters. And when I heard, well, I didn't even hear, I read the article. When I read that Hockey News article, and look, I don't want to shit on everyone at the Hockey News. There are some people that work there still, like Siobhan Nolan, who covers the Flyers, started this year. She does really good work. It's not like everyone there sucks. But there are people that work there that definitely now lean towards the sensationalistic. It is not the same publication it was that we grew up with, where it was like hockey prestige.
We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It's now owned by Sports Illustrated, and it's a bummer what Sports Illustrated has turned into.
It really is.
Considering what it was when we were kids, and my God, for the 50 years before that.
But that article, the way it was positioned as like Cutter Gauthier 2.0, that was trash. And it not only was it clearly clickbait driven trash, it also showed a complete and total lack of understanding of what was actually freaking going on. What was going on in that interview was Danny Briere was trying not to ruffle feathers. I don't know for sure, but I am fairly confident that the idea that the Flyers have had no contact with Matvei Michkov since the draft, I do not think that is true. I think that now, whether maybe it is technically true. Maybe they have not actually spoken with him on the phone or met with him in person. That's possible. But at the very least, they've been in contact, I'm sure, with his representation. They have boots on the ground in Russia. Ken Hudakov is a Russian scout. He's there. the idea that they drafted this guy and then we're just like, oh, well, he can just do whatever he wants. He's only the most important person in the fucking organization. That was insane. And when Danny Briere said that, that was the Leo pointing at the TV meme moment for me, where it was like, oh, this interview isn't directed at Flyers fans. This interview is directed at SKA, and it's directed at the Russian oligarchs because they want them to know that, hey, like, we're hands off. We're not trying to steal your player. We're doing all the right things here. We're not trying to convince him to leave, because they know that if they start to make it seem like they were encroaching in on SKA's territory, that they might blow the whole thing up. And it goes back to something that Medvedev said in his interview on April 30th and something that Rottenberg echoed today. Both of them. Now, these are the execs of SKA, the team that owns Michkov's rights at the moment. They both made it abundantly clear that they think the relationship between the Russian team and the Philadelphia Flyers organization is very good. That's great work on the part of Danny Briere. That this is where all this plays in, is that the Flyers are not overstepping their bounds. They're playing the diplomacy battle very, very well. And the fact that both Medvedev and Rottenberg said, Flyers are great, we have a good relationship with them, like that more than anything explains a lot of the messaging, because the Flyers want to keep that relationship strong so they can actually pull this off.
I'm just like skimming again this Rottenberg interview on Match TV from like today, and going back to the Danny, we haven't talked to him. Like maybe they haven't directly spoken on the phone, and that's what he's saying now because he doesn't speak a ton of English. But like in this article, it's like asked, you have a dialogue with the Flyers. He goes, we have an opportunity to communicate. Like, and he goes on to say, like, we have good communication. We communicate with everyone. We are absolutely open. We invested a lot in Matvei, but we want to support him and his family. Like, he's saying we've talked to the Flyers.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Danny's like, oh, who's to say, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
the family element is interesting to me because you can sort of see, it would not shock me at all if, look, everyone in Russia knows that Matvei Michkov is an incredibly talented player. They know that he's a highly touted prospect in the hockey world. They know that most likely he's going to be a key member of the Russian national team for the next decade plus. Like, even if he goes over and plays in the NHL, it's not like suddenly he's gone from Russia. Yeah. He could be their next Alex Ovechkin, where he's the star of the Russian national team. You know, it very well could happen. So this is a big deal in Russia. And SKA knows that if they're going to let him leave and never really get a chance to use him, because like he played on the team for a few games the last 2 years, and then immediately got loaned to Sochi because Rottenberg didn't want to play him. If they let him leave without ever getting a chance to see him play on their team for a full season, people in Russia are going to be like, did you screw this up? By them saying like, this is a family thing, he really wants to make this decision for his family, that's a way for them in Russia to position it as like, no, this was not that we were greedy and we wanted a buyout. This is not that we didn't think he was that good. It's nothing like that. This is Matvei Michkov, who's had some serious family stuff. Obviously, Michkov's father passed away in the months leading up to the draft under weird circumstances. Regardless of what happened, I'm sure it was extremely crushing for the kid. He's a freaking teenager, just lost his father. It's awful. Yeah. That is legitimate trauma that SKA can point to and say, like, you know, there might be like a report that comes out that basically like his dad's last request was for Michkov to play in the NHL. And that's why he's so driven to do this. And we're the good guys here allowing him to fulfill his dream and, you know, fulfill his promise to his father. Like, to me, that's what it sets up for, where it's a much better sell in the Russian media that like, we're doing this for the good of this kid who might be the next Russian superstar, rather than, yeah, we just didn't feel like playing him because he can't get along with the coach and whatever. So yeah, sure. Yeah. Give us a couple $100,000 and we're good. It strikes me again. This is what I'm talking about, how the momentum seems to be going in the right way. It seems like this is laying the groundwork for the public explanation as to why they made the decision. Now, whether that was actually the reason for the decision, I'm skeptical. We don't know for sure. But you have to present it to the public somehow. Sure. And I think the fact that that's already being like, it's already being foreshadowed is notable.
They also like, sent him to Sochi against his will. Like, it's where his father passed away.
Yeah.
He's like, I really don't want to play there. It kind of sucks for me.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, well, we're sending you back.
Yeah.
It's like,
sorry.
We all silly like the mayor.